Okay, so let's look at what is going on with Ryan Reynolds at the moment. Why would someone at the peak of their success suddenly get caught in these conflicts, lawsuits, and public drama? Is it really about Justin Baldoni for Ryan Reynolds? Is there something deeper? You cannot actually read that document and not wonder what is going on. One of the things that can really help us understand all of this is that if we don't do the deep inner work, sometimes our insecurities, our wounds, our egos can pull us into battles that we don't even really need to fight, but we can get so drawn in that we lose sight on where we're going and what we want to achieve. And when we can come from a place of wholeness, we can really do something radical. We can own our mistakes, take responsibilities, and move on. Right now, we're watching this play out. And Ryan Reynolds with Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively, we can really see how even when you're at your success and there's no need to do all of this, we have to wonder, why is it really just about them? Or is it, if you've ever found yourself in an unnecessary conflict where you're getting involved in someone that, where there's power struggles, or you yourself are somehow sabotaging your own success, this video is for you. One channel that's brilliant is Ask Two Lawyers. I would really recommend that you actually watch them. They're fantastic. And I was listening to their commentary on this particular legal document, and the first thought that came into my mind was, this is a great example of Gay Hendricks' book, The Big Leap. He talks about something called the upper limit problem. The idea that we all have these subconscious limits on how much success, love, and happiness we can allow ourselves to have. And if we exceed that limit, we'll literally go into self-destruct. And we can bring ourselves back down to losing everything. Like, that's why some people who get great success through winning the lottery, within a few years, they just lose all their money through dramas, through legal battles, through conflict, through self-sabotage. This, I think, could be what's going on with Ryan Reynolds, because And as we look at this, it really helps us go deeper. Is his ego playing a massive role in this? If we have insecurities, if we haven't healed, if we don't actually see things clearly, and instead of going inward and healing what is really going on with me, I'm feeling uncomfortable, we end up defending, attacking, and we fight for our reputation. We even double down on bad decisions we know could actually destroy us, because admitting we were wrong feels like a threat to our identity. But when we come from a whole, grounded place, we don't need to fight. We can say, look, I messed up, and that's okay. We can take responsibility. And I think Justin Baldoni would be an amazing person to have that conversation with and say, you know what, I have done that inner work. I have done that deep inner work. And I realize that I made a mistake. Let's settle this. Let's move on. I think listening to some of his podcasts, listening to some of the things that Justin Baldoni has done, he's really trying to embody self-reflection, going inward, and coming from a space where we're listening. He is actually talking about this level of self-awareness, of deep reflection, humility, and healing the vulnerabilities of the ego. That, in a sense, is what he's talking about in a lot of his podcasts. So the question here is what's happening with Ryan Reynolds this? Could it really just be this? So let's break down the legal document and see how this is playing out. One of the summaries that our two lawyers talked about was, they were saying that Ryan Reynolds is, in essence, in the document, are saying, I never said it. If I did say it, it's my opinion. But if it's not an opinion, it's true based on what Baldoni has said about himself. Why do you have to ask, what is going on? Why would you do that? Why would you put something like that out into the public arena where you haven't got a stance? You're just moving and shifting depending on what will get you out of this scenario where you'll be right. So the first, page 9, the opinion defense. Here the legal document says the statements were made that were made were opinion. Now, it is really interesting because it is actually dismissing accountability. Instead of standing and saying, I claim that I did say this, this is what I believe, this is what I'm about, or saying, actually, I'm sorry, the argument is saying it's just my opinion. So it actually doesn't really matter, even though that opinion cost you your reputation, everything. They're trying to use words to dismiss the impact that it had on Justin Baldoni. And when we're led by our ego and insecurities, we actually struggle to admit that we're wrong. And we all can do that at times. Now, we don't know what is going on within Ryan Reynolds, but it's clear that he doesn't have a clear stance. We don't know where he's standing. Like, do you admit that this is your opinion? Or are you saying that you're only saying it because Justin Baldoni said it and taking it out of context? When we're led by ego and insecurity, we struggle to admit we're wrong. And we look for ways to justify our actions. And that's what's fascinating about this case, because the way it's framed actually tells us what's going on behind the case itself. If you look at page 11, they're saying it's substantially true. Here, the argument is that the statements weren't defamatory because they were substantially true. But what does that actually even mean? It means that even if things are taken out of context, if there's some element of truth, it's not legally defamation. But again, this isn't, from my perspective, it isn't really about the legal loopholes. It's about cleverness that we're sort of seeing, which is what the ego does. And it's also about why would someone who is so successful, so talented, so creative in his own right, would engage in a legal battle, would actually destroy everything for him? And why would he get into a legal battle like this in the first place? It doesn't make sense to have this stance. Page 12 is the Justin Baldoni contradiction, we can call it. This part is wild. It suggests that Baldoni himself called himself a predator, and therefore it's not defamation because it's his own words being used against him. But here's the issue. Context actually really matters to us. To us, me and you. It actually matters when we're meeting someone and we're talking to someone. Context hugely matters. And so for a jury, it's going to matter as well. When things are being taken out of context and things are being twisted and words are being used as weapons to destroy someone, that shows us that we aren't whole. We're not being authentic, if you like. And when we are authentic, when we are whole and we're coming from that space, we don't have to manipulate narratives. We just own that our own reality and our own experience. We can say, look, I made a mistake, or I understood this. This is where I'm coming from, and this is what I believe. Page 14 is where, and when someone can come from that space of this is my experience and this is what I believe, we can see that, oh, I understand where you're coming from. It might not be the truth, but you can understand where they're coming from, and we can create a connection with that person. We can create a connection and understand. Then we look at page 14 where Ryan Reynolds is actually doubling down instead of saying, okay, this is what I believe, but doubling down from the outside, and it looks baffling. And I'll be honest, the ego does baffling things. It backs us into a corner where the only thing we have left is to fight harder, or we feel like we're going to lose face, we're going to be embarrassed. But when there's self-awareness, we don't have to be so critical, because we can do things like what Justin Baldoni has done, is actually reflect on our past experiences. And this is what we're seeing that is being taken out of context, where he's owning up to his own insecurities, his own vulnerabilities, and actually learning and evolving and helping us all come from a space of connection rather than coming from a space of ego or unhealed wounds. When we come from a space of unhealed wounds, we can't see clearly and we actually can sabotage ourselves. And we can make enemies out of people. We can go for court cases that actually destroy our own reputation. And it's never really about the person that we're in a battle with. It's normally that we're wasting our energy on battles that are sabotaging ourselves because of our own internal barriers to success. We don't feel worthy deep down, because if you did feel worthy, you wouldn't need to do this in the first place. So here's the truth. If Ryan Reynolds was truly, truly at peace with himself, I don't think he would need to fight this battle in this particular way. I think Justin Baldoni is someone that you could actually say, look, it's not about you, it's about me. I didn't realize I had these insecurities, or you triggered some insecurities within me about my relationship with my wife. I don't know. But it appears that the most important thing that Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively need to do is actually go inward and just work out what's really going on that actually triggered some insecurities or fears, that was it a success or was it something else? And that actually I can see now that it's my own vulnerabilities, it's my own ego, but we need to do the deep inner work to be able to do that. You see, the ego is insecure. It needs to win. It can't get to that point of actually saying, hey, I'm insecure. I see you as a threat. And I have to win at all costs, because losing feels like I'm going to lose. I'm going to die. That's how the ego feels. But when we're whole, we can own our own mistakes. When we do the inner work, we can say, look, I made a mistake. I take responsibility. Let's move on. I don't need to fight. I don't want to waste all this money, because I know my worth. I know my self-worth isn't dependent on you or other people. And I think for Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively and all these other famous people, really, truly, we are their audience. We are who pays their bills, us common people. And the trust that is needed between us and them is so important. We need to know that they are being honest and truthful about where they're coming from and where their stance is. And the highest form of power is inner peace. True power isn't about proving you're right. We don't want to be around people that think that they are right all the time. It's about knowing who you are. We're all going to make mistakes. It's about mastering yourself, your own mind, and not allowing it to go to this level. At the end of the day, I don't think it's just about a lawsuit. I think it's a battle between ego and real presence, real wholeness, between fear and love and real power, between insecurity and values of who you are, in being able to create trust. If you are struggling from self-sabotage, or you're finding that you procrastinate, or you have these limits, these invisible limits within you, that like a glass ceiling that never lets you go forward, and you find yourself sabotaging, not obviously to the same level as Ryan Reynolds, but if that is something that you struggle with, please do look in the description, and you can apply to book in a one-to-one session with me, and we can look at what kind of therapy you might need, or what do you need to actually fulfill your full potential, and how has this impacted you in terms of him doubling down? Do you think that they're on this self-destruct mission? Let's talk about it. Sending you so much love. Till next time.